everybody, I'm Alicia Gadsden. Welcome to LiveFit Kitchen. I'm doing a quick fried rice today. This is a great meal as a side, or you can turn it into a main meal very easily. I'm going to do a vegetarian version for you, but it's really easy to add all kinds of meat and seafood to it as well. So let's begin with a tablespoon of toasted sesame oil. You can use regular sesame oil too. I just like the extra flavor that you get from the toasted one. So put that into a pan that you've pre-warmed a little bit on a medium heat, and let that oil warm up just a little bit. Once the oil's fairly warm, nowhere near smoking, just nice and warm and moving around the pan as a nice liquid, put in your ½ cup of onion. You want it to sizzle a little bit as it goes in there. So if you're not sure if your oil is warm enough yet, you can put just one teeny little piece of onion in, and if it sizzles, then it's ready. Now you want to brown your onion down a little bit, so that might take a minute or two. If you're really hungry and in a hurry, turn the heat up a little bit, it'll be just fine. But give that a minute or two as you're sauteing it to get the onion to cook down nicely. Now, once your onion is cooked, that's when you're going to add the brown rice. So turn up the heat just a little bit just before you add the brown rice so that you're actually going to fry the rice a little bit in this little bit of oil. And the trick here, of course, is that the rice is pre-cooked. And apparently, if you actually have the rice left over in the fridge for a couple of days, apparently that's when it makes the very best fried rice. So if you cook the rice and end up throwing it straight in, that's just fine. But if you're looking for something to do with some leftovers, this is the trick. Now, I am using brown rice, and I definitely recommend that. Although I do have a friend that used quinoa, and she said it turned out really well as well. But we will be using brown rice for today. So this is pre-cooked, and it actually had time to cool overnight in the fridge. And in it goes. So just make sure it breaks up. If it's a little bit lumpy, break it all up there and really get it to mix around with that oil, because that's going to be your flavor carrier for the oil there. Now, as I was researching different fried rices, I found that a consistent theme was people telling me that if you want the flavors of each individual item in the mixed dish to be preserved, the trick is to cook each ingredient separately. And if you have lots of time, or you're really trying to impress your company, then that's probably a great idea. But for me, I'm usually in a hurry and really hungry, and I'm not so fussy about stuff like that. So you can cook each item separately, cook it in the pan, put it to the side, put the next thing in, or you can fast track it a little bit. Now, it's going to take a couple of minutes for that rice to really get coated in the oil. You want to keep turning it and fry it up a little bit. Some people like to go so far as to almost make it a little bit crunchy. I like to stop a little before that. What I'm mostly doing is just making sure that it's fully broken up so there's no clumpy bits as it's doing that. If you do want it to fry up, not quite to crunchy, but heading that way, then after you've got all the bits broken up, you can just let it sit in the pan on that medium to higher heat just for a minute or two, and you'll find that the bottom of it will really cook up like that. Just keep an eye on it because it does burn pretty quickly. You may notice by now too that some of your onion is browning up, and that's great for the flavor. So if we were doing this for company or to impress even just ourselves, we'd be taking this out of the pan before we cook the next ingredient. But hungry and in a hurry says the carrots go in next. And that's just a ½ cup of carrots. And this is what I love about this recipe too. If you don't have carrots in the fridge, you leave it out, you substitute for something else. Just keep in mind, if you are substituting different things, how quickly different things cook. Carrots take longer to cook than the broccoli that's going to go in later, and so that's why they went in a little earlier. So those carrots probably need a minute or two, and you'll find that your rice will continue to fry up a little bit as you go along here. And that's why, if you're going to leave it sit for a minute or so, you really want to keep an eye on it, because otherwise it can end up very crispy at the end. You might also think that a tablespoon of oil was a lot to start with. It kind of looks like a lot in the pan when you first put it in, but by the time you put everything else into the dish, it doesn't end up being oily at all. So I can see from the color change and just looking at the carrot that that's starting to soften a little. And so the next thing I have is corn. I'm using frozen sweet corn, and I did leave it out so that it would unfreeze before I threw it in. If you forget and you throw it in frozen, I've done that too. It works just fine. But I really like the color mix there. And gosh, it's kind of almost a little bit festive for fall, isn't it? I like that. So the corn will cook down, and again, you'll give that a minute or two. And if the corn has actually completely unfrozen, then closer to the minute mark is plenty, because again, this dish will continue to cook as you keep adding more and more ingredients. But I really think the key is really just to keep it all moving, just keep stirring. So next up is the broccoli. I have 1.5 cups of broccoli. I like the broccoli in this one. I just love broccoli. I tend to have it in the fridge most of the time. I've substituted for zucchini though, and that worked just fine as well. But I like the chunkiness of the broccoli as it goes into this dish. It kind of, adds another dimension to it. So again, stirring that through and letting the steam of the moisture of the corn and the other ingredients cook the broccoli a little bit. Because the next thing you're going to do is move it all to the side and make yourself maybe just 1/4 to 1/3 of the pan of blank space, because that's where the eggs are going to go. For this quantity of rice, the 2 cups of rice, I like to use 2 eggs. So if you are multiplying this out, generally an egg per cup of rice seems to be a good mixture. But again, this is one of those great dishes that you just can't get it wrong. If you're making it and you only have 1 egg, just put 1 egg in. It works just fine. Now, I did mention earlier too that you can put beef or chicken or seafood in this. Those little itty bitty baby frozen shrimp work just great. Leftover chicken or fresh cooked chicken. I do tend to cook the meat separately when I do this one. And if you're maybe going to keep this for a few days in the fridge, maybe you'll even want to keep the meat separate and stir it in right at the end. One thing I do as a time saver sometimes is buy a pre-roasted chicken at the store, just the plain one, no barbecue sauce or any of that other rubbish, just the plain roasted chicken. Bring it home and strip it while it's still warm, because it's easiest to get all of the meat off the bird when it's still warm. And keep that to the side. And then if I'm making the fried rice, that barbecued chicken or the rotisserie chicken works really well in this dish. And you can literally chop it up into bits straight from the fridge, stir it through the hot rice, and by the time it hits the table, it'll be perfect. Now, as I've been talking here, I've been continually scrambling this egg. You'll notice I didn't add any water or anything to the egg to make it fluffier, because I kind of want to keep that more solid eggy consistency. And as I've been scrambling it, I've been breaking it up, and a few of the vegetables have gotten mixed in with it. When you finish up with the egg, you want it to be in really pretty small pieces, because that's going to go through the rest of the dish. Now, the next thing I'll add is a tablespoon of soy sauce. And again, if you're on a low sodium nutrition plan, maybe you won't use soy sauce. Maybe you'll use the Bragg's amino acid spray, just a couple of sprays to give it, again, another little flavor dimension, a little bit of a different zing to the flavor there. So we're going to add our tablespoon of soy sauce. And a tablespoon is really plenty. If you're not a big soy sauce person, you might only use 1/2 tablespoon. And just drizzle it over the rice there. You'll hear it hiss as it hits the bottom of the pan. If you're a total freak for soy sauce, you might even use a little more, but the tablespoon, I think, is just about enough. So stir that through. You'll notice your broccoli has really softened up. Get all of the soy sauce really well mixed through the rice, and then turn the egg into it. And that's the last little step there, is turning the egg into the rest of it. Now again, like I said, this would be the time if you've cooked some of those little shrimp, or you have some leftover beef from something you made, or that chicken from the rotisserie chicken leftovers, whatever you've got, you can put that in the bowl and serve this with it. You can serve this as a side if you've maybe just grilled or baked some chicken breast. You can serve this on the side. You can multiply this recipe out into a huge quantity if you've got lots of people coming, but it does keep really well in the fridge for a few days. So you'll find that it's one of those great things that, as the weather's chilly and you come home and it's cold outside and you're hungry, if you have this pre-made in the fridge, then you'll have a great healthy meal ready to go. And you can see it plates up really pretty, lots of colors. It smells amazing. I'm tipping it everywhere. I love to make a mess. Quick, simple, and really delicious fried rice.